You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 163. The quality of my thoughts determines the quality of my life. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, Breakup Coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, beautiful Bravehearts. How is everyone doing? I am so excited to sit down and chat with you. I have a really fun episode today, and it's not just directed towards breakups. Today, I really just wanted to take a moment and talk about something that's a little bit more general. It obviously still applies to breakups. It applies to dating. So no matter where you are in your breakup journey, this will still be super helpful. But just know that it's more of a general topic. I'm not addressing like a specific thought error in a breakup. It really applies to all thought errors. So I have been learning a lot. This is just some insight into my life. I've been learning a lot of new things this year. I set out this year as saying it was going to be my fairy tale year. And I think when I said that, I had an idea as to what a fairy tale is. And now it's painting a very different picture in terms of what I thought a fairy tale was to actually what it is. And it's really funny because when you think of a fairy tale, there's a lot of ups and downs. There's, plot twists, there's villains, there's all kinds of stuff. And it's like when I said that at the beginning, I just forgot all of those things. So if I'm being really honest, it hasn't been the easiest of years for me. It's been really interesting learning all of these new things and doing life in a completely different way from some years prior. And I have spent a lot of time failing and a lot of practice committing to what it is that I set out to do. So I thought it might be helpful to give you some examples as we venture into today's episode. So one example is that I've been learning to run my business in a new way. And I do everything myself currently, and learning to release that of hiring a VA to do a lot of the tech stuff. I love coaching. I will never be removing myself from coaching or like the delivery component of my programs. However, when it comes to setting things up in the background, even things as simple as the podcast, producing that, setting it up in Libsyn, or even the Kajabi system that I use, setting up the emails that go out. I send emails for every call. Like all of that could be done by a VA, and learning to let that go and have someone else help has just been way more interesting to me than I thought it would be. I thought I would get to this point of being like, of course, that's what I'm doing, but it's not as easy as I had anticipated. Giving up control in that way has been proving itself difficult to me. Another thing is Tinkerbell. You guys have heard a little bit about that and a little bit about that situation, and she's doing amazing, by the way. But it took a long time for me to learn how to be loving and patient when she wasn't doing amazing, loving the 50% of her life that wasn't going in the way that I thought it should, right? And other specific parts of my life this year that don't come naturally to me. I've experienced feelings of doubt. I've experienced doubtful thoughts from time to time. And so really learning to redirect those into optimistic and abundant experiences has been an area of growth for me this year as well. Now, I recently had this like huge awakening. Well, which awakening is a little dramatic. I wouldn't say that I'm an enlightened individual. So let's use the word like epiphany. But I've had this revamp to my relationship with thought work in general. I went on this road of exploring other areas, other coaching types, which I think are all super beneficial. But I have committed to this area of thought work in a way that's so much deeper than I knew was available to me. And it was really triggered by a very small exercise I did with my coach, Jill Wright, who was using, I believe, a Byron Katie technique. I think that this is a technique that was taught by her, where she tells you to add my thinking to the beginning of anything you're describing as a pain point in your life. So let's just look at some examples here based off of what I was kind of describing earlier. So when my thinking is easy and quick, learning this new way to run my business is easy and quick, because my big thing was that it was hard, complicated, difficult. It was taking longer than it was supposed to, right? When my thoughts about Tinkerbell are loving and patient, I'm loving and patient. When my thoughts about my life are optimistic and abundant, my life experience is optimistic and abundant. And I have literally started putting my thinking in front of everything. When I'm complaining about anything in my life, we start with my thinking. So even when I'm just sitting in line and I can hear my mind saying this line is too long, I turn it into my thinking about this line is too long. Like, what? So much freedom in that. So much shifts for me when I do this. It's wild. So when I realize it's my thinking, there's so much we can do to shift that energy, whether it's the Starbucks line, business-related topics, Tinkerbell, or the areas of my life that don't come as naturally as they seem to do for others. Now, a breakup example of this is when my thinking is kind and reassuring, my experience of my breakup is kind and reassuring, versus when my thinking is scary and fearful, my experience is scary and fearful. When my thinking about my ex is mean and harsh and judgmental, I experience judgment. And for dating, it might even look like this. When my thoughts about dating are confusing and full of I don't knows, my experience is lack and confusion, and I don't figure it out, versus when my thinking is clear and easy, my dating experience is clear and easy. Very similar to like my business example of when my thoughts about learning this new way are clear and easy, I have a more clear and easy experience. Or another one for dating is when my thoughts about dating being complicated, tiresome, and disappointing, my dating life will be complicated, tiresome, and disappointing. And that's what I see a lot of you just subscribing to, because it's like the general gist of the conscious collective of that's what people are saying about dating, and then I subscribe to that. So then I therefore have a dating experience that's complicated, tiresome, and disappointing. And look at your thoughts. Those thoughts are tiresome, complicated, and disappointing. Versus when your thinking is fun and playful and giddy, that's the dating experience that you'll have. You'll have a very full, playful anticipation and exciting experience of dating. You're the one that gets to decide. And there's so many areas of my life that I'm starting to see this. All kinds of stuff where people have these like mainstream ideas of how those are supposed to go. When I was talking about my wedding to people, they're like, that's going to be so stressful. And I'm like, really? How do you know my experience is going to be stressful? Just because your experience was stressful? What if I opt out of the stressful wedding experience? What if that's just not the experience I want to have? As long as I don't have stressful thoughts, I therefore don't have to have a stressful wedding. Okay? So here's the problem, is that no matter how long you do thought work for, no matter how amazing of a coach you are, I believe I'll always have to be reminded that it's never my circumstance that is the cause of my suffering. It is always my thinking. Now, you may be new to thought work and your breakup is the first place you're learning how to apply this in. Or maybe you're an experienced coach, you've even been to coach certification, you've been doing this work for years as a therapist, and you have to recognize that no matter how amazing you are as a coach, you can be a phenomenal coach, a phenomenal therapist. You can be so educated in all of this information and still have to be reminded that thoughts create feelings, not circumstances. And that's okay. After doing this work for a while, you begin to think thoughts like this should get easier, right? That you shouldn't have to do this work again. You should know better. But here's how I see it. We are constantly going deeper and deeper. And just because we've done work in one area doesn't mean we've explored every single crevice of that canvas. And it doesn't mean it won't appear in a new way that we aren't familiar with. Or maybe we need to simply be like reminded of the work we did there. And instead of getting all up in arms about it, it's just a reminder. Hey, we did this work here. Remember what you concluded? Awesome, cool. Let's take that and move forward. Or if we need to dive deeper, that's amazing and beautiful too. And why make that a problem, right? And listen, I do actually believe it gets easier in terms of becoming aware and noticing it quicker, faster. And I have so much less resistance to seeing things differently. I really do love exploring the complete opposite side, not so that I change my entire viewpoint or agree with the opposing side, but I'm not tied to what I believe in so tightly anymore. There's no like worst case or best case scenario. It's simply I either stay with my current viewpoint or I'm going to be shown information I didn't know existed or a new perspective that I didn't know existed, and I decide I like that different viewpoint better. And that's awesome. But thought work is what makes all of this so simple. If it's the quality of my thoughts that determines the quality of my life, then I don't have to constantly work at shifting circumstances in my life to match what I want. You don't have to constantly be shifting or trying to change what your ex is doing or, trying to work around the world. You get to simply change your thinking. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. You get to simply update and clean out your mind. And I was watching a coaching call with one of my coaches, Brooke Castillo, the other day, and she was coaching a woman on clutter in her house. And she said, don't go clean your house, clean your mind. And again, just a beautiful example here of, yeah, we might want to clean the house, but the first thing that's going to have to happen is you're going to have to clean your mind, because the uncleaned mind has created the unclean house. It's a direct reflection. The clutter in your home is the direct reflection of the clutter in your mind. And I was thinking about this the other day because I needed to clean my car, and I sat in my car and I was like, this is such a mess. And the only reason it was such a mess is because my mind's a mess. I hadn't cleaned out the mind yet, and that's okay. So what if instead of trying to change your ex, you started changing your thoughts? And what if instead of trying to ask other people how to meet your person, you started asking how to think about meeting your person? And what if instead of complaining about your breakup or your dating situation, you started complaining about your thoughts about your breakup or dating situation? Right? Root cause versus symptoms, my friends. So for just this week, I want you to start placing my thinking in front of anything that's causing you so much upset or discord. And I want you to see what thoughts you have about it and how they make you feel. And I want you to get to work changing your thoughts instead of the situation. And I know for those of you who've been listening to this podcast are like, isn't that what we've been doing this whole time? And I'm like, yes. But I just want to take a moment and remind you, for those of you who've started at episode 1 and have been listening this whole time at like real time. Some of you have been listening to this real time and haven't like binged the whole thing. Reminding you, thoughts create feelings. It's not your circumstances that are creating your discord. Or for people who they are in this work all day, every day, coaching clients, this is just a reminder. I want you to catch yourself when you're complaining. Catch yourself when things feel so outside of your control. Catch yourself in scenarios where you've been blaming your boss, blaming your ex, blaming the people you're dating, maybe even blaming, this is a huge one, blaming the dating apps. What are your thoughts about them? And let's clean up the mind, my friends. Declutter, reorganize, Marie Kondo that mind of yours, because if you're like me, it may get messy from time to time, and that's okay, but it's time to do something about it. And I'm in this stage of my life where I am up-leveling on a completely different level. And I'm so ready for a new, refreshing view, and it's going to start with my mind. That view is going to come from my mind. So I hope you come with me. I hope you create this new view. I love you, my brave hearts. I hope you have an amazing week, and I will talk to you next time. If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.